Panchakapatubhasya kripasanchiva evacha patitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavibhyo namaha. Hare Krishna. Okay, so welcome, a very warm welcome to you all to ISKCON Australia's first community services conference. Hopefully it will be the first of many. It is very inspiring to see so many Vaishnavas come, specifically for a gathering such as this, which is intended to promote and develop personal care and support for Vaishnavas, and also possibly for others who may seek our services. So today we have our guest speaker, Steve Carrigg, here, who joins us from New South Wales Rural Adversity Mental Health Program. Thank you so much for coming, Steve. Yeah. Now, to start us off this morning, we have a musical performance by Sita McRae singing Ohe Vaishnav Thakur. A bhajan by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and she will be accompanied by Deva on guitar and our own Radha Madhava on the djembe. Now in this bhajan, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is calling out to the Vaishnavas that he can take shelter of them, because a Vaishnava has the qualities of compassion and faith. And that is what this conference is about. It is about looking upon others with compassion, taking the compassionate approach to our dealings with others. And certainly our own Srila Prabhupada set a perfect example of such compassion. Now, according to tradition, going back to the pioneers of Lord Chaitanya's Krishna consciousness movement in those days, devotees do seek the blessings of Srila Sanatana Goswami's Madana Mohan deity in Vrindavan before they begin something new, right? Just like Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami did before writing the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So today, because we are pioneering this idea of running Vaishnava community services conferences in ISKCON, at least within Australia, ISKCON, we have this photo of Radha Madana Mohan in Vrindavan. Right, you see that on the top right-hand corner of the screen here, and we're hoping to receive their blessings today. Okay, so now I'd like to welcome to the stage Sita McRae singing Ohe Vaishnav Thakur.
Hare Krishna, Hare
Thank you so much, Sita and musicians. That was very wonderful. Okay, so amongst our presenters today are individuals who belong to specific community service groups here around New Govardhan, whilst other presenters are individuals who will just be speaking from their knowledge and expertise about Vaishnava care in general, and some of those individuals have come from other centres. Some of our New Govardhan groups are already up and running, whilst others are very much still in the formation stage. And first up, today we're going to be hearing from our mentorship team, right? So we have three of our steering committee on our mentorship program who will be speaking. Our mentoring program started on New Govardhan approximately 6 years ago, and it has kept going, and it is actually expanding gradually but slowly. So our first speaker today is His Grace Damodara Prabhu, who has served within ISKCON for many years. Like his wife Radha, Damodara has had the good fortune of spending more or less his entire life in the Association of ISKCON Devotees. Damodara has run Bhakta programs in his brahmachari days. He ran a lunch centre in Soho Street in London and various other preaching programs. And he's also been the temple president for ISKCON's Belfast Temple, Soho Street Temple, and the Bhaktivedanta Manor. Now, in the professional realm, Damodara Prabhu has worked for the very successful Franklin Covey, a company that is a world leader in consulting and training individuals and organisations to achieve their own goals. He's also worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers, a multinational professional services network, ranked as the second largest professional services firm in the world, and he is currently working for HFL Leadership, which is a specialist leadership firm. Now, with all of his invaluable knowledge and skills, Damodara Prabhu is today contributing to a number of New Govardhan community services programs, such as our mental health development team and our counselling services, and he is also the chairperson for our New Govardhan mentorship program. Please welcome His Grace Damodara Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, and thank you again for choosing to come. It's a good reflection of our community's values that any time there's something that needs to be pulled together, we turn out in good numbers and roll up our sleeves and make something happen. It's one of the very endearing things about New Govardhan. I'm going to speak more about Vaishnav care and community services in principle and some of the purposes or outcomes that we're hoping for from today. I'll leave the deep dive discussions to my colleagues Ambika and Padmalocan Prabhus on mentorship specifically. The concept of Vaishnavism and the concept of care are inseparable. In fact, very often Srila Prabhupada would define a Vaishnava as Kripam Buddhi Ya Paradukha Dukhi, one who feels misery for the miseries of others. There's a verse in the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that says, great personalities almost always undertake voluntary inconvenience to relieve the sufferings of people in general. This is the highest method of worshipping the Supreme Lord who is present in everyone's heart. That was said when Lord Shiva drank the ocean of poison. So it's a symbol of a Vaishnava. It's inseparable with a Vaishnava care. Lord Chaitanya's movement is sometimes summed up as Jivadoya, Namruchi, and Vaishnav Seva, these being the three elements. And community services captures both Jivadoya and Vaishnav Seva in very, very practical ways. I thought I'd talk about the purposes. So this morning we're going to hear about many of the initiatives that have already been taken or are in formation, as Hladini mentioned. That's to hopefully showcase what's already possible, to invite you to participate or contribute, or to possibly even sponsor some ideas in your own mind about things that you could do. This afternoon we'll be talking about action. What's the vision? How far do we think we can drive, and how fast do we think we can drive these initiatives over the next 1 to 3 years? And what sorts of things do we want to put in place? What kind of effort will it require? So much broader open discussion this afternoon. So there's a couple of other little quotes here that I thought might be relevant. Gandhi may not be one of our particular absolute authorities, but this is a very, very powerful statement. The true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members. That would be a sign. And I was thinking about how wonderfully we came together for the cows here. And we're seeing other initiatives going on in terms of ladies' well-being. We've got some mental health initiatives and so on. So Srila Prabhupada specifically created a society rather than a church. And I think his choice of those words was very deliberate. I thought I might just read a couple of really important statements, mind-blowing statements if you really contemplate them, from Nectar of Instruction. This is the purport to verse 4, which talks about 6 ways in which Vaishnavas exchange love with each other. Giving and receiving food, giving and receiving gifts, and giving and receiving advice, or could say the essence of mentoring. Guyamakyati Pritchati. Srila Prabhupada said, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness has been established to facilitate these 6 kinds of loving exchanges between devotees. Later on he says, the life of the Krishna Consciousness Society is nourished by these 6 types of loving exchange amongst the members. Therefore people must be given the chance to associate with the devotees of ISKCON, because simply by reciprocating in the 6 ways mentioned above, an ordinary man can fully revive his dormant Krishna consciousness. So I know that we're all practically on board with Vaishnav care, community services in principle. So I know I'm preaching to the choir, and I'll make way very shortly for some of the speakers to talk about very specific initiatives. But I thought I might just finish with one quote from a story by Giriraj Maharaj about someone that might have ordinarily been written off. They called him Crazy Peter. Some of you may know this story. So this is from His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj on Srila Prabhupada's Disappearance Day, Houston, 2004. Srila Prabhupada's faith in a person or mercy toward a person brought great results. There was a young man who came to the Boston Temple when I was there in 1970. His name was Peter, and Peter was eccentric, to say the least. In the old Boston Temple, there was the front door, and then there was a hallway and a stairway up to the temple room. Basically, when a new person came, all they would see was the hallway, unless someone greeted them and directed them up to the stairs to the temple room. So Peter made his home in the front hallway. He would keep all his books and personal paraphernalia scattered on the floor of the hallway. He would rest his back against the wall and stretch his legs out, completely blocking the hallway. And sometimes he would lie down and sleep in the hallway. He did not respond to normal instructions and thus earned the name for himself, Crazy Peter. We used to call him Crazy Peter. Still, we all knew Srila Prabhupada's mood. Srila Prabhupada was very merciful, and especially in the early days of the movement in America, we considered that any soul that came to the temple was sent by Krishna and was not ordinary. And we would really do everything we could to encourage the person. But with Peter, things came to the stage where we thought he was causing such a disruption that new people who came would be discouraged from Krishna consciousness. We thought that maybe for the larger interest, for the greater good, we should just ask him to go. Satsvarup Maharaj, as the temple president, wrote to Srila Prabhupada and asked if we could ask Peter to leave. And Srila Prabhupada replied, "What's the matter? Can't you tolerate?" Thereafter, Srila Prabhupada returned to India, and he asked each temple to send one devotee. I was chosen from Boston, so I went to India. For years, I never heard about Crazy Peter, nor did I think much about him. Then after being in India for many years, I came back to visit the United States, and there at the Los Angeles temple during Guru Puja, I saw Crazy Peter. I couldn't believe it. So many years had passed, Srila Prabhupada had left the planet, and there was Crazy Peter, right in the temple room in Los Angeles. I asked a nearby devotee, "Who is that?" He answered, "Oh, that is Kushakrata Prabhu." I thought, Kushakrata Prabhu, the Sanskrit genius who was producing translation after translation of Vedic scriptures and the works of the Goswamis and other acharyas? We were reading them and reciting prayers from them. His translations were an essential part of our spiritual lives. I thought, oh my God, that is Kushakrata Prabhu? Crazy Peter has become Kushakrata Prabhu, the Sanskrit translator? And then I thought of Srila Prabhupada's mercy. Srila Prabhupada had protected him. Somehow Srila Prabhupada wanted to give him a chance to do service, to become Krishna conscious, and he did. Srila Prabhupada ki. So, I'll make way for Ambika.
Thank you very much, Damodara Prabhu. Okay, so now our next speaker, Ambika, Devi Dasi, she's really been the backbone of many of our community services here over the last few years. So Ambika is currently, well, she has been for a few years. She heads up the ladies branch of our mentoring program, as well as some other community programs. So Ambika first met the devotees in 1971, and then from 1974 to 1980 she served in Bombay as a pujari, after which she took up residence here on New Govardhan and taught at our Gurukul school for approximately 15 years. In more recent years, Ambika and myself, in collaboration with senior devotees such as Krishnarupa and Asesa Sadhini, we started New Govardhan's mentorship program, for which Ambika is now in charge of the ladies. Then Ambika, with the assistance of Krishnarupa, also started a local Vaishnava care program, somewhat informally initially, but over the years this group has now blossomed into a larger and more official group which provides palliative care and care for the seriously ill. Now Ambika, who says that her life has been blessed by the grace of Srila Prabhupada, Krishna and the devotees, she is actually one of the cornerstones of our community services. We're very fortunate to have her in our midst. So I would like to welcome to the stage Ambika Devi Dasi. So mentorship is not exactly like that, but the idea of mentorship is to have somebody in your corner for you. So everybody likes to have a well-wisher, and you'll notice with Srila Prabhupada's letters, he always signed them, your ever well-wisher. So a mentorship program is to have a... it's actually from a GBC resolution that was passed quite a few years ago. Some gurus are very strict that when people come along they must have a mentor, but that doesn't happen everywhere. But we decided, Hladini set up this mentorship program to facilitate new devotees initially who were coming along and wanting to, progress, take initiation, etc. So we decided that the mentor should have been around for, a fairly long time, at least 10 years, so that they've had experience plus life experience, so that they can offer help to the devotees that come along needing a mentor. And for the mentees, they can explain their challenges or their difficulties, or just sort of share with the mentor, how things are going for them, what their goals are, etc. So I know that there are various mentorship programs going on in the world, but at least here in Australia, our program at New Govardhan is a one-on-one program. So the idea is that we meet the mentee once a week for half an hour, and if there's a meeting that they want you to attend with them, with the temple authorities or something like that, we'll also do that. But that's the main obligation. The idea was it shouldn't be too much of an obligation for the mentor because everybody's so busy, but it should be very personal. So we have that time, that half an hour, which is very special. And of course, it's completely confidential. So initially we decided, we'll just bring along new devotees, kind of help them to prepare for initiation, and that's it. But of course, you can't do that. You can't have a relationship with somebody and then just sort of
dump them, like when they take initiation, well, that's it, So naturally there's a bond created between the mentor and the mentee, and it's just a very, you become very close. So even though we might lessen the time that we spend together, it's still very special. Like I've got somebody I was mentoring some years ago. She's married, she's living in Mayapur, but she's back in Australia, and she immediately rang me up and said, when can we get together? So it's it does form a nice, close friendship. Although initially we were trying to just get people up to that stage of initiation, we found that in our community we have people coming along as volunteers. They may be staying at the farm for some months, and they're very interested in spiritual life, or some are here and going to return to their own country after some time, but they want some, that kind of assistance and help and just affection from somebody who's been around for a while. So we sort of expanded it a bit. And then some, like Mother Ekadasi, she's got somebody that she's still mentoring. She was at the farm for quite some months, maybe even a year, but they're still very close. I don't know she wants to get initiated or anything, but they've got that bond, and they've got that person has a friend always. So we've expanded it even now. Just now we've got somebody here who's, she's just here till September. She speaks another language, so I've mentored her with somebody who speaks that language. So we do try to mix mentor and mentee with similar interests, kind of take a little mental note of the personality of the person, and then think, oh yeah, I think that person would be really good for them. We give it a 3-month trial. If it doesn't work, we may have to change the mentor, but generally it's been very successful. So the benefits, of course, are that, for the mentor, we have this nice relationship with somebody. And then for the mentee, it's helpful for them in their time management. They're doing full-time service. They often can't manage their time very well. To interpret the scriptures to everyday situations, they need help with that. Interpersonal relationships, they may be having difficulties. So any problems that they have, then you can talk about it. We can talk about it. We have a website which explains about our mentorship program. And one day out of the blue, I got a call from somebody who said, "Hello, my name is Brenda, and I want a mentor. I live on the Gold Coast." And didn't know anything about this Brenda. So, I said to her, I've got the perfect person, and it was Rasarani. And so I hooked up Rasarani to Brenda. Now, Brenda just went from strength to strength, and she's just recently taken initiation. So I'm going to invite Brenda to tell her story.
I've been asked just to share a few minutes of what it meant to me to be mentored. I had been attending another group, which was not ISKCON affiliated, and I honestly didn't feel like I was getting the questions answered that I needed to. And one of the main things I noticed is that they weren't following Srila Prabhupada's steps, which is what I was really interested in. So I conned my daughter into coming down to the farm with me with the lure of cows. And when we went to the temple, and I really wish I had noticed who the girl was that I spoke to, because in that 10 minutes, she made me feel so welcome that I just wanted to stay forever. She showed us a little bit around the temple, how to offer our obeisances, and spoke to me about mentoring, directed me to the website, and we came home and I looked it up all excited. And I rang the next day and spoke to Ambika, and she was very lovely, and she said, "I've got a very dear friend who I think would be perfect for you. Just have to con her into it." So we had lunch the following week, and Rasarani was very kind to take me on, even though I'm sure I've been challenging at times. And from time to time we meet and she'll have notes on what she thinks may be interesting or that I may not know about. Sometimes it's even on a paper plate, just so that we can go over things that she's thought about as we've gone along. Being very humble as she is, Rasarani is very willing to share anything, and I've probably asked questions that are not appropriate, but she's been very humble and has answered all those questions regardless. I always feel like I can trust the answers that Rasarani gives me, and I know that even though I am initiated, this is not the end for me. I want to be following Rasarani for life, and Ambika has sort of become my side mentor as well, because she's helped along the way so much as well. I suppose one of the main things to me is that knowing that I have someone to hold my hand along the way, who I can ask questions, who has my best interest at heart and can help me to follow the path that I should be following, keeping me out of trouble. Those are probably the main things to me, and I would really encourage all of the centres to really promote the mentoring, because really I think if you just go along like I did with my last group, not knowing and not having anyone to ask, you kind of flounder, as I did for 6 years, and not really progressing and not really learning and living the life that you should be. But Rasarani's put me on that path, and I thank you.
So I'd like to say that Braja Vilasini, now initiated, is our Vaishnavi rep for the Gold Coast, and she's also our Vaishnava care rep. So just see what the mentoring program did. So, and just recently, 2 weeks ago, an Indian lady contacted me, a couple, and somehow they had started chanting one round, then they struggled through, then they chanted two. Next thing, they're chanting more than 16 rounds, they're offering their food, and they said, "We want to talk to some mentors, can we talk to you on the weekend? We're coming to stay." So they came last weekend, and I met with the lady, and Padmalocan met with the man, and they were very enthusiastic. So this is the benefit of having the mentorship program advertised, because we know that, so many people are suffering, Krishna consciousness is growing, and, you just never know who's going to come along and, want that mentorship assistance and take up the spiritual path. So I think it is very important to have a mentorship available for all spiritual seekers, and I thank you very much for listening. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Ambika. Okay, so now our next speaker, Padmalocan Prabhu. So Padmalocan, who after coming to Krishna consciousness just, I think it's 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, has really astounded us all with his great enthusiasm, his ability to coordinate several departments around the temple simultaneously. One of the best multitaskers I've ever met. And above all, he has a very friendly, supportive and caring attitude towards those around him. So before joining ISKCON, Padmalocan was a personal trainer on the Central Coast, and currently, in addition to being in charge of numerous rosters around the temple, he has joined our New Govardhan mentorship program, and he is the coordinator for the men's mentoring. And Padmalocan Prabhu says that he is eager and ready to take on even more responsibility to push forward Srila Prabhupada's mission. So, speaking on behalf of New Govardhan's mentorship program for the men's program, please welcome Padmalocan Prabhu.
Good morning and Hare Krishna. My name is Padmalocan Das, and I'm looking after the men's mentoring program. It was a great honour to be asked to take charge of this program. First of all, I'd just like to say a big thank you to Hladini for putting on this wonderful day. I've seen firsthand the work that she's put in. It's been fantastic. Okay. What is a mentor? Mentoring or mentorship is in classical sense is when a professor, guru, artist or craftsman takes under their wing a student, apprentice or disciple in order to teach, train them in a particular field of expertise. This is the archetypical guru-disciple relationship and is the most effective form of teaching known to man. Why a mentor? The beginning stages of devotional service can be tough. There are many challenges and obstacles to overcome. For myself, I found the beginning stages of devotional life bewildering. Why? Because I was identifying with the false part of self, which was beginning to drop away. As the false part of self began to drop away, I clung to it, like a child clings to their favourite toy, thinking, this process is taking away who I truly am. For myself, I found that plenty of doubt arises in the beginning stages. It can be hard to take the whole process in. Relationships are yet to be strongly formed. The rules and regulations can be overwhelming. This is where the mentor fits in. The mentor is there to take one's hand and give them guidance when needed. To be there for one when faith is not yet strong. To act in a certain way to give one confidence in this process. To be a friend and to be one who inspires. This is who was there for me when I was struggling within my early days, and it makes all the difference. Our plan here is simple, to be the link for those who are beginning their journey in Krishna consciousness. When I got initiated, I felt as though I was thrown a chain to link to my life raft, which was getting tossed around within the oceans of the material world. That chain made all the difference. It gave me a destination, it gave me guidance, it gave me encouragement, it gave me safety, it gave me hope, and it gave me Krishna. This is what the mentor program can give to new and existing bhaktas. The mentor program is a link, a chain, to help one guide their way through their problems, doubts, difficulties of spiritual life. We're here to turn the high beams on when times get tough and dark. Krishna consciousness is the perfection of life, and everyone deserves the opportunity to realise this. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Good job.
Thank you so much, Padmalocan Prabhu. Okay, so now we are moving forward to the Vaishnava Care Committee, also known as the Vaishnava Care Community. And speaking for this program today, we are going to welcome His Grace Vasusrestha Prabhu. So Vasusrestha Prabhu was initiated in 1976 by Srila Prabhupada. For most of his life, he has been involved in ISKCON's public relations. In 1979, he opened Mukunda's Drop-In Centre just behind the Darlinghurst Temple near King's Cross in Sydney to help all the souls that are suffering in that challenging district. In 1983, Vasusrestha Prabhu acquired the beautiful temple in Graceville, Brisbane, which then served Brisbane Yatra for approximately 25 years. And in 1987, he also relocated our Crossway Centre into Swanson Street in Melbourne, where it still operates today. Then, relocating back to New Govardhan in 2014 with Dhanishta, Vasusrestha has since dedicated most of his time in establishing relationships between the various programs here at New Govardhan. That's namely Krishna Village, the temple, Krishna Pad, and so forth. Now, Vasusrestha Prabhu is currently a board member for our Gurukul. He is a member for New Govardhan Finance Committee, and he is also the chairperson for the Vaishnava Care Committee. So, on behalf of the Vaishnava Care Committee, please welcome His Grace Vasusrestha Prabhu.
It's indeed an honour to be in the midst of Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis and caring souls. As we progress with time in this rapidly accelerating age of Kali, misfortune seems to abound. Not only relatives, but our god brothers, our god sisters, are somewhat prematurely being afflicted by so many maladies that have sprung up in the environment in which we live. I've been asked to speak about our particular group, the Vaishnava Care Community, or VCC as we call it. The purpose of VCC is to assist Hare Krishna devotees in the area who become seriously ill or palliative. So to give a broader picture, I would like, with your permission, to delineate explain 7 stages of VCC from its inception to our objectives for the future. So stage 1, stage 1 was the beginning, sometime in the early 2000s, when some caring Vaishnavis such as Ambika, Mandakini, Ekadasi, Krishnarupa, and others, please excuse me for not remembering your names. All these Vaishnavis made themselves available by accompanying and rendering what service they could to sick and ailing devotees in their houses and in hospital. So stage 2 was when our dear friend and elderly Prabhupada disciple Guru Das visited our new Govardhan community in October of 2017. He not only gave a lecture tour on his pastimes with Srila Prabhupada, but he voiced his concern for senior Vaishnavas who were falling ill around the world with no one to care for them. He had begun a Vedic Care charity trust in the US and India, which incorporated hospice care, and he was trying to get devotees all around the world on board to participate in this project. And while he was here, he did visit a few terminally ill devotees, and I was there with him, and his presence was such that he really enhanced the lives of those devotees. He went and saw Sachi, who was struggling with the disease, and she was very, very much inspired by him and took his book, promised to read it. And then he went and visited Yasoda. And Yasoda was pretty gravely ill at that time, and she lit up when she saw Gurudas. She was on a double bed, and he sat on the double bed with her, and he held her hand, and she said that it was like having Srila Prabhupada come to visit her. He's a very caring devotee. So, stage 3 was that while Guru Das Prabhu was here, we organised a gathering for devotees who were interested in participating in this project. And to our great surprise, there were more than 45 devotees that came. They were young and old, and they come along, and they were all enthusiastic about getting involved. So subsequently, we started to have regular structural meetings every 6 weeks or so with a smaller core group. The group would determine which devotees were in need of help, how they could be helped, and also discuss the different strategies on how we can broaden the services of the Vaishnava Care community. Stage 4. From the outset of the first meeting, the group set a goal that in the near future it would construct a hospice dwelling for terminally ill devotees on New Govardhan, where they could be looked after with care and love, helping them to transition to the next stage of being. Our real test, one very positive test for the mettle of our community came when Sanak Prabhu, so the older devotees remember Sanak, he was before my time. He was in 1970-71 as a temple president in Melbourne for a short while. And he'd been out of Australia for like 20 years, working as a horse whisperer in Greece. So he found out that he'd contracted different types of cancer, not one, but 2 or 3 types of cancer there. And it was looking pretty grim for him. So he somehow or other got in touch with Kurma Prabhu, who was in Ireland, and Kurma rang Ambika Mataji and said that Sanak wanted to come back to Australia to pass away in Australia. So that's what eventuated. He was brought to the farm and he stayed in cabin 8. I consider that to be his lucky number 8. He had no documentation, so devotees had to take him, register him with Medicare, arrange his benefits, visits to the doctor. They had to work out his medication, his catheter, and his meals when he could eat them. And as you can judge, it wasn't very organised. It felt strange taking 6 o'clock maha to a man who could hardly eat anything in a terminal state. But he hadn't eaten prasadam for so many years, and that's exactly what he wanted. Puris, halva, spicy sabji and tangy chutneys. Right? That was on his menu. Of course, he only ate a little bit, but he was keen what to do. So this put our VCC devotees to the test, and some great souls, such as Amurti Mataji, who became his carer for gratis most of the time. She stood by him, as did others. Took him to all the places where it was necessary. An extraordinary turn of events occurred where, after operations, he recovered, albeit having the strap of catheter on, and after 6 months he was considered to be free of cancer and considered cured. So he's away again, gone back to his what he was doing, but he's always vowing to remember Krishna and how the devotees on New Govardhan helped him through his crisis. So, stage 5, it was decided that our group should become registered and apply for charity status in the same way as Food for Life organisation is registered. So, with diligent work from Mandapa Prabhu and Aindavi Mataji, we were able to register the name Vaishnav Care Community with the ACNC in February of this year. Having appointed a chairman, secretary, treasurer, and 2 office bearers, we had our mission statement, and we're working on a constitution, or we are working on a constitution at this point in time. Is that right? Yes, got a nod. So this has enabled our treasurer, Mandapa Prabhu, to open an account in the name of VCC with the National Bank. Mandapa Prabhu with Aindavi Mataji also managed to secure charity status for VCC with the regulatory body. So, stage 6. During the Sacred Sound Festival, VCC set up a stall to advise people of our services, and we were wanting to reach out to devotees from other temples to initiate similar services in their respective zones. We received a very positive response and dialogue with devotees from other centres. It is still ongoing. Sometimes, stage 7, sometimes a person may think that when time comes, they'll be able to leave their bodies at home. Hopefully that is correct, assuming they have a home. Well, Sanak didn't have one, for instance, but also the case arises when medical help goes from low care to high care. Then a hospital situation is required, after which the patient is transferred to a high care facility like those that are available in a nursing home or as such. So at this point, a Vaishnavi hospice would be much more preferable and ideal. As I stated previously, this has always been our goal. Now that we are a registered group, our next objective is to find some kind-hearted architect who can draw up plans for a modest hospice to house 2 patients and their carers at one time. Once that is achieved, we can present this to Ajita Prabhu to determine what land he could allocate for this project, and subsequently begin to seriously collect funds for this project. We've discussed different ways and means, but we would dearly love to have a fundraising night where we could invite our dear friend Gurudas Prabhu as our guest speaker. So, in summary, Prabhupada has given this wonderful society, he's given this wonderful philosophy, and on the front page of the pamphlet which we've just given out, he states that a devotee knows that after death he's going back home, back to Godhead. Therefore he has no fear of death. So, instead of depressing a devotee, advanced age helps him become fearless and thus happy. So in the same way, this is our objective, to set up this hospice. Like we have a gurukul for the young, and it is equally as important to have a hospice and facility for the old, so then our society can become a complete whole for all generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vasusrestha Prabhu. Yes, there we have Guru Das with Yasoda in the top right-hand corner there. Right, so over the past 12 months, a small group of New Govardhan devotees have been meeting to try and ascertain the best way forward for our community to cater for devotees who suffer from mental health ailments, but who nevertheless are keen to engage in devotional life. Now, this initiative was actually started in response to Ajita Prabhu's concerns for how, as a community, we can accommodate for the numerous individuals who do suffer in this way. So currently our main aim is to design a program in which we can smoothly and safely integrate devotees afflicted with mental illness so that they can become and be considered as being valuable contributors to our community. Often the needs of such individuals are many and variegated, and this makes our task all the more challenging, but the rewards of helping such individuals are certainly worth it. Now, approximately 12 months ago, I think it was Krishnarupa, she contacted His Holiness Bhakta Churu Maharaj, and we were asking Maharaj at that time if the GBC has any policies or plan for how ISKCON temples should respond to individuals who desire devotional engagement, especially initiation, and who suffer from mental illness in some way. And Maharaj told us that currently there are no such policies or plans that the GBC has drafted. So perhaps our efforts here on New Govardhan can play a role in leading the way in creating suitable programs for appropriately integrating such devotees. And our first speaker today, so we have our guest speaker. Okay, I'll start that again. Steve is a registered nurse. He's been working in mental health for over 30 years. He is passionate about youth and Aboriginal mental health issues, early psychosis, and reducing the stigma associated with mental illness. And that is one that we really do need to challenge within our ISKCON communities. Also, Steve is an accredited mental health first aid instructor, and he has now trained over 1,500 people in mental health first aid. And we are actually hoping to, there has been some discussion how we can actually run this mental health first aid course here on New Govardhan and perhaps other Australian ISKCON centres. It's just a short course to perhaps teach devotees how to be a mental health first aid carer. Please welcome to the stage our guest speaker, Steve Carrigg.
Thank you, Hladini, and thank you for the invitation to come along and spend some time with you this morning. I usually get a little nervous talking in front of people, but for some strange reason today I don't feel nervous at all, and I was just reflecting on why that might be. And I think it's probably because I'm surrounded in a room full of people who are like-minded, just from what I've seen already, what I've heard, and the people I've spoken to. I'm aware that there's a lot of compassion and care for others in the room, so that's why I feel quite comfortable. I don't, hopefully that's not me doing that, but So once again, thank you. It is a privilege to be here. I'm very passionate about the area of mental health and looking after people with mental ill health. Today I'm just going to talk about
I might just keep talking if that's okay. If this works out, I'll miss everything. So I am a registered nurse. I am employed by New South Wales Health. My office is the Lismore Based Hospital, but nowadays I've got a regional role in this program
called the Rural Adversity Mental Health Program. So for the first 25 years of my career, I was working in what is called the acute mental health sector, if you like. So that's dealing with people who are in some sort of crisis, experiencing an acute mental health episode, and how we can look after those people, support those people through their crisis. And I sort of fell into mental health at a young age, at the age of 19. And I thought I'd give myself a few years working in that sector. But I love it. Every day is so different. I look forward to going to work, and I feel quite privileged because of that. The role I'm doing now, it is the RAMP program, or the Rural Adversity Mental Health Program. And as you can see on the screen up there, our role now is more about raising awareness of mental illness in our communities. Is that okay? Raising awareness of mental illness in our communities and reducing stigma and linking people into the help that they might need. And as I'm about to present, mental illness can present itself in so many ways, shapes and forms. I'll just see if I get this button. Oh, there we go. Fantastic. So there's actually 19 of us now scattered around New South Wales. Up until a few months ago, there were 14 of us. But because of the drought further west, the government, the New South Wales Health Department, have increased our number of positions by 5 to better support those people affected by drought. Now, we know that climate change is happening, and therefore we will be experiencing more things like drought. Part of my role for New South Wales Health is to act in a disaster response and recovery role as well. So, for example, here in Murwillumbah, 2 years ago, I spent a long time, 8 weeks in fact, down at the Community Recovery Centre at the Community Centre, listening to people's stories about their experiences with the flood, and trying to support them through that process and linking them into other care if they really needed that. Most people don't. I've already had a conversation with Radha this morning, and she mentioned one key word that we discuss all the time in mental health, and that is listening, the ability to listen. And a big part of our mental health first aid courses is focusing on active listening and curious listening. People get better a lot of the time simply by having an opportunity to tell you their story. And I always encourage people never underestimate the power of listening. So another part of my role was more recently out at Tabulum, listening to people's stories who had been affected by the bushfires out there. Many people lost everything. And I've never ceased to be amazed by a lot of people who lose everything still saying, I'm okay, I'm more worried about the person up the road. And that's for me, that is an evidence of their own kindness and compassion for others as well, when they have absolutely lost every, tangible, physical memory that they've ever had, and they're more worried about other people. So we are scattered around New South Wales. I do have a colleague who sits down in Grafton, and should the team here decide that they want to go ahead with some mental health first aid training in the future, I'd be inviting my colleague from Grafton to come up and help me facilitate that, but I'll leave that up to the group. First of all, I'm just going to touch on what is mental health. It is a continuum. Mental health is not really an exact science. I consider it more to be an art form. So yes, whilst we do have training and degrees and those sorts of, sometimes important backgrounds, I actually think what is probably most powerful and important working in the field of mental health is what I call a degree in common sense, care and compassion. I've over the years have discovered that it's not anything more technical than that, and it's a lot about our own self-reflection of who we are as human beings and what we can offer other people who are more vulnerable. And one of the first slides I saw here this morning was the measure of a society being how we look after our most vulnerable, and I think that really brings it home for me. We know that many of our most vulnerable people would have a mental illness, or they are escaping domestic violence, and I've had a conversation about that this morning as well. People with serious mental illness are overrepresented in places like prisons, not for any serious criminal offence, mind you, and I want to make that clear that I feel very, very safe going to work every day working with acutely unwell people. In fact, I see far more problems in hotels on Friday nights than I do working in the acute mental health service. It's simply most people with severe mental illnesses are very creative people, they're very kind people, they're very intelligent people, and they don't lose that just because they become unwell. Also, people who are homeless, I think we are overrepresented by people with serious mental illness, and I'd like to think as a society we get better at looking after those people and making sure that they have a place of comfort, a place of safety, and a roof over their head. That would be, if I could change the world, that would be one of the first things I would do. Actually, so before I get into that, mental health for me is about being connected. It's about being a part of something and you feel valued and you feel like you're contributing in a positive way to your community, to your family, or to whatever group that might look like. It's just about being connected and feeling a part of something useful. There is this... sorry, I'll go back, I think. Oh, that's the end of the slide, so I better start again. So, I've got a different clicker that I normally use. Just bear with me. I'm going back now. That's good. Okay, I'll go forward again. So this is what's called the PERMA model, if you like, and it addresses some of the foundations of what makes up good mental health as opposed to mental ill health. And firstly, we can see that the top left there, it's a positive emotion. So it's being able to have the ability to see the bright side, the optimism, reframing our thinking when things go wrong, to think about, you know, I guess it's like being the glass half full type of person where even though our life is going to be presented with challenges, and that's a part of being a human being, we're able to take a step back, reflect on that and draw from those lessons, draw from those experiences and come out the other end having a positive attitude to what's happening to us and those around us. So it is about optimism and sometimes it takes a bit of time and effort to rephrase our thinking, but it's an important part of mental health. Engagement and finding flow. So for me, my individual engagement and finding an area of my life where I just focus on nothing else and I'm just in the moment, for me that involves the ocean and things like surfing and swimming and diving and being under the water and just thinking of nothing else apart from those experiences. It's important. Now, the ocean doesn't appeal to everyone, it just appeals to me. But if you can find something in your life where you feel completely connected and engaged with that particular aspect and forget about everything else in a while, that allows our mind to switch off for a bit, and that is also an important component of mental health. Relationships, positive relationships. As human beings, we are generally herd animals. We do like to be around other people most of the time. There's been lots of studies done over the years about there was a very well-known study done in an orphanage in, I think it was Poland, where little babies who were orphaned didn't have any just physical contact with other human beings. And their outcomes later in life were a lot worse than those outcomes for people who just did have simple touch of another human being, the voice of another human being, the smell of another human being. So as human beings, we are herd animals. We do like to be around other people. And unfortunately, when people become unwell, they often become quite isolated and socially withdrawn. So, mental health, which is the opposite of mental illness, means that we are connected, we are feeling that we're loved and valued by those around us. Meaning, a sense of purpose, a sense of connection, whether that be with regards to spirituality, faith, religion, whatever term people like to use. And certainly when I spent a large part of my career working in fairly remote and traditional Aboriginal communities, the connection to country and their stories and their ancestries, their songlines, was a huge part of their meaning and belief in life and who they were. They would call it their law, L-O-R-E law. And for them, that country connection is a huge part of their mental health and emotional and spiritual well-being. And lastly, but not is achievement. So it's setting goals. It's about thinking, okay, what would I really like to achieve with my life, and breaking that down into smaller steps and having achievable goals. And that sense of satisfaction that comes with being able to achieve a goal, whatever that might look like. So all of these 5 things, these 5 areas, if you like, make up the foundations of what we believe to be good mental health. What are mental health problems? Now, this is where the wheels start to wobble a little bit, but you might not yet meet the criteria for what is termed a mental illness. So you might be starting to feel a bit more anxious and nervous, not sleeping so well, getting a little bit more irritable, perhaps even cranky with others. And you know that you're not feeling at one with yourself, your relationships and the rest of the world, but you might not yet meet the criteria for a mental illness. So I just want to touch on that term mental illness and diagnosis for a second. There's, I guess, 2 sides to the story of the value of having a diagnosis when we talk about mental illness. Some people say it's just labelling, putting people in boxes, and that's not very useful. I certainly appreciate that point of view. I've spoken to many, many people over the years with serious mental illnesses, though, who actually say that getting an accurate diagnosis for them has changed their life. It's given them a framework, it's given them a guidelines, it's giving them some sort of conceptualisation of what their life is now and where they've come from, and it allows them to focus on those areas of life that they need to change, to improve, to feel mentally well again. So I appreciate that sometimes labelling, diagnosis aren't considered at all useful, but for many people they are. And my view on life is each to their own, and I completely appreciate both sides of that particular argument or debate. The opposite of mental health is mental illness, and that's where people do become socially disconnected, isolated and withdrawn. The 3 main things for any mental illness, whether it be an anxiety disorder, a depressive disorder, a mood disorder, psychosis and eating disorder, the 3 main things that underline all of those diagnoses are, number 1, the intensity of the symptoms. So the actual symptoms themselves are quite strong. The duration of the symptoms. So they last a long time. They're not just a few days of sleep disturbance or feeling sad, because as human beings we're entitled to those experiences. But they last a lot longer than just a few days. And every different particular condition has a different duration. And most importantly, it impacts on the person's ability to function to a significant degree. So it stops them from doing things they'd like to be doing, whether that be, having a hobby, playing sport, connecting with others, going to a dance, whatever the case may be, a mental illness might prevent them from doing that. So they're the 3 main things: intensity of symptoms, duration of symptoms, and the impact on the person's ability to function. How common are these things in Australia? Now, this is based on a 2007 survey. It's the most recent survey we have. I'd like to think that they would repeat it again one day. When I say they, the government, the federal government. At the moment, this is as good as we've got. Around 1 in 5 people would experience the symptoms and meet the criteria for mental illness in any 12-month period of time. A few years ago, you may have seen a lot of media exposure around this, which I think is terrific. We're raising awareness. We're getting people to appreciate that these things are very, very common. Extraordinarily common. So 20% of the population in any 12-month period of time would meet the criteria for mental illness. However, only 1/3 of those people actually receive any help and support for those conditions. So a lot of people go without getting that support. Now, there's lots of different reasons people don't get that support. It could be because they live a long way away from services. It could be because they don't actually realise or appreciate they're sick in the first place. It could be the cost. Sometimes these things are expensive. There's lots of different reasons. It could also be the stigma associated with mental illnesses in Australia. We still know stigma exists. It is getting better. We are seeing more people around, the high-profile people, talking about their experiences. And whenever I see that on the television or the radio or wherever I hear it, I feel for the person involved, because I know how difficult mental illnesses can be. But I also think it's wonderful as a society that we're talking about it more, particularly men in society. And as an Australian male, being brought up in a fairly traditional Australian male sort of environment, we're sometimes not encouraged to talk about how we feel and express our emotions. Now, I'm the father of 2 little boys, and I have to be very aware of encouraging my 2 little boys to express themselves. And that might be crying. Crying is a good thing. And in Australia, sometimes blokes aren't encouraged to cry, particularly rural men. We're conditioned from a young age to be able to fix our own stuff, whether it be tractors, fences, machinery, cars, whatever it might be. We're taught to fix our own stuff, be self-reliant, be stoic, be independent. And sometimes when people aren't travelling well, we can't do that very easily. We do need the help of other people. We do need the support of others to help us get us out of that headspace that we're in. So and there's strong correlation between the distance you are away from urban centres to not so much the prevalence of mental illnesses, because the most recent studies we have suggest that whether you live 500 kilometres away from a capital city or not, the incidence, if you like, and the prevalence of mental illness is still the same, but the complications of those mental illnesses become far more. The things that, how it affects your life can become more significant the further you are away. Over the course of a lifetime, according to this study, though, about 45% of us would be directly affected by mental illness. So these things, as I mentioned, are extraordinarily common. Sometimes not recognised, sometimes not supported, but are common. One of the really important things I'd like people to think about today is that they can be fixed, they can be managed very, very successfully, but for that to happen, we do need to seek that support. And once again, getting back to men, and it's not only men, but certainly men, when help is offered, we need to learn to accept it. One of the things I notice over the years is that if services are offered to people, sometimes people don't accept it even when it's there. So we need to get better at accepting help when we really need it. I'm not going to talk anymore, and I would like to once again thank you all for inviting me to come along today. Unfortunately, I do have an apology to make already, in that I think it was the great John Lennon said that life's what happens when you're busy making other plans. My wife is heading out about lunchtime today. She's going away, and I've got 2 little boys I need to go and look after. They're not quite old enough yet to be left to their own devices. I'm not sure what would happen if I did. But I would like to be working with you all in the future if that is what the group decides. And as Hladini mentioned, I am a mental health first aid instructor, and I do other shorter training courses for people. And if that is something that the group here decides they'd like to look at going forward, it would be my pleasure to be involved in that. I do them for nothing. I don't make any money out of it. I'm not here to advertise a business as my role. And I think it's a very important role. It's an important role that I get a lot of satisfaction out of as well. So I'd be keen to work with you all in the future again. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so very much, Steve. Okay, we've just got to do a little bit of adjustment with the lighting here. It'll take us a couple of minutes before we invite our next speaker. So, now we're going to be hearing from, actually we have 3 speakers from our mental health development team here within New Govardhan. And as Steve was just saying, he's actually, we consider him a part of our team, or a part of our initiative to assist devotees in this way. First of all, now we're going to be hearing from Radha Priya Devi Dasi. Now, Radha Priya, she was raised a devotee. She attended Gurukul from the ages 4 until 18. She has a diploma in social welfare and worked for 3 years in mental health as a support worker for individuals suffering from schizophrenia for the Richmond Fellowship in New South Wales. Approximately 20 years ago, she also worked in the UK for a suicide emergency centre called Samaritan Lifeline. Now, currently, Radha is working as the reception coordinator for our farm's Krishna village, and in this role, she daily interacts with many Krishna village guests, locals, visitors from all walks of life, and quite a few of these individuals, they do need some sort of emotional support. This is what Radha has found in her service there. As well as also needing other types of personal guidance and counselling. And I do hear that Radha has already spent many hours responding to these types of needs for this Krishna village population. So we want to, first of all, thank Radha for that. And so now, speaking on behalf of New Govardhan Mental Health Development Team, please welcome to the stage Her Grace Radha Priya.
Haribol, Hare Krishna, family, friends of the Govardhan. Unlike Steve, I'm nervous. I'd like to thank you, Steve, for your really great, informative presentation. And the distinction between mental health and mental illness was really, it was really great. It was really clear. And mental illness is such a misunderstood condition. So many times we don't actually really understand it. So thank you for that, and I look forward to us taking you up on your offer for that training. Hladini, thank you so much for inviting me to participate. We've met many meetings on the couches and talking about this, and I agreed to do it because I'm really passionate about it, and I'm really I see how necessary it is for us to have a strong mental health department and a strong mental health program so that we can deal with mental health issues. So I'm going to try and be as prepared as possible. So you might be wondering why so many of us are speaking on mental health today. It is because it plays such a central role in all of our lives. It's so prevalent within all of the vulnerable groups that we are looking after. Age care, so Vaishnav age care, youth groups, child protection, women's groups, men's groups, mentoring groups, all of these groups of people that we're supporting. At some point there will be mental health issues that we must, that we need to support and create a structure around. So, in this current day and age that we live in, mental health is on the rise. It's something that's increasing all around us. We see it daily. It can be something like depression or anxiety, which is caused from trauma, stress, the environment we live in, family condition, situations that we have. So it can be anything, through divorce, grief, loss, through losing someone. It's a mental thing. It's a physical thing. Where we start to, suffer from circumstances in our lives that lead to depression, anxiety. We also have severe conditions that need to be diagnosed and treated. And as we find, I'm not sure what slide I'm on, but okay, so basically it's pretty much at the central point of our existence, whether we have mental health or whether we are suffering from a condition that is leaving us vulnerable and not mentally well, so we don't have mental wellness. So that's why there's a few of us speaking today, and I'm attempting to do this justice, Hladini. So many of people that come to Krishna, they're seeking shelter. So we see more and more that people are coming to our community and are seeking shelter, and they may be challenged with mental conditions that it makes it hard for them to be part of our community, to participate and to integrate. So our objective today, I would really love to see where we have a structure, a mental health program, mental health structure, where we can support these individuals who find it extremely challenging to integrate and to participate in our Krishna conscious movement, that we offer them the required and necessary support. And some of that support may be high need support. And I feel that having been a devotee all my life, so 50 something years, it's time that we are able to develop that structure, so somebody can come and be a devotee of Krishna Because actually, at the end of the day, our process, it is actually the process that works on controlling the mind. I wanted to quote a verse from the Gita, chapter 6, verse 6, on Srila Prabhupada, actually Krishna telling Arjuna that the mind can be the best friend or the worst enemy. So I opened this book the other day, and this little snippet came up from Srila Prabhupada's teachings. He wrote a letter to a woman, Susan Beckham, August 29, 1973. Lord Chaitanya's, the incarnation of Godhead in this age, has delivered the medicine for all problems of the world by his introducing the Sankirtan movement. Sankirtan means to chant the holy names of the Lord and give up all engagements. The chanting is a process of purification, just like we use soap to cleanse the body. This is material, but the chanting is spiritually cleansing. And then he goes on to say that in the Bhagavad Gita, the mind is the best friend and the worst enemy. For one who has learned to control the mind, it is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, it is the worst enemy. So Srila Prabhupada has been so kind and brought us this process where we can actually learn to control the mind. Of course, there are levels, there are times when we may need more support, and we may actually need, just chanting the holy name, there needs to be a little bit more support around certain individuals because they're experiencing high levels of trauma that have caused them to be in a situation where they have a certain mental condition that we need to give extra support. So I'm just going to see what's happening with the slides. So this is where we would like to actually, kind of like the slide that Steve was showing about all the things that we need to do to have good mental health. So we need to be able to go to work, devotional service, recreation, relationship with the Guru, raising your children, cleanliness and personal safety, appropriate diet and rest, and so on. So if people are able to access this, if they're experiencing challenges within their lives, then that would be such a great service, and that would actually promote the inclusion and the participation that we would like to offer all individuals in this age to take on Krishna consciousness. So that's all very philosophical up there. But I just was reading what Srila Prabhupada was saying about chanting, and so obviously Srila Prabhupada understood, that the mind is such a powerful, part of who we are, and it's constantly going, even for the best of us, we're constantly dealing with the mental platform, how we can control it and overcome it. So I just feel really strongly that, I work in a place at the moment where I'm constantly interacting with people who come to find Krishna and to visit Krishna and to get to know him. And I have to say, some of the people challenged with the most intense levels of mental health, they're experiencing mental illness, they're the most passionate about chanting Hare Krishna. They walk around with their beads all day, they're chanting japa all day, they're listening to Prabhupada chanting. There's this one woman, she was walking around the farm for 3 days with Prabhupada on the tape, out loud chanting. I'm like, oh wow, she's really, she's, on some level, she's really advanced because she's so wants to take on, the process that Prabhupada gave us. However, because these people experience high levels of need for support, if someone like that isn't given the appropriate support, they can also cause a disturbance. So our role is to find a way to create a structure, a mental health structure, support system that allows us to give those people that are truly interested in coming and being devotees the opportunity to do that. And so that's what I'm really passionate about. I had a little one of my encounters recently was with a lady who came to the Krishna village, and she came to see me, and she said, I need to talk to you. And I want to just tell you that I want to talk to you because I would like you to give me, help me set a program for the next week, because I'm here for a week and I want to get the most out of this experience. A couple months ago, I tried suiciding, and that didn't work. And I'm on, this, and this. And she told me all about her diagnosis and what she was on. And I said, okay. And she just opened up to me about what she'd experienced, where she was at. She was really honest about everything. And she said, I want to come here because I feel like this is the place for me to get some wellness in my life. And I'm really interested in the Krishna conscious process. So I said to her, okay, so this is the schedule every day. Maybe don't try and do everything in one day. Just take it really easy. Maybe go to the temple once, see how that feels. Go to a yoga class, see how that feels. So I kind of just gave her a few little, I said, don't take on the whole program. Just a little bit at a time, and come and see me every day if you need to talk. And so that was that. And then she went out, and the next day she came in and she goes, thank you for that. I'm feeling better, and I feel like this is going to work. 3 days later, I see her in the kirtan, Kadambaka and Amarja's kirtan. She's dancing in ecstasy, and she's so happy. And she looks at me and she goes, I'm so happy. And she's just like, she got it. She got what Prabhupada is giving us, and she was completely absorbed in it. And then when she left, she came to the office and she signed out, and she said that was the best experience of my life. I am so grateful that I had this experience. And it was just so heartwarming, and it was so wonderful. And I was like, because I introduced her to Srila Prabhupada as well on the first day, and I was like, he's going to be so happy right now that you're just that. And she went back to her normal life, daily life, to do her daily activities. And she's got Krishna consciousness now. She left with neck beads and some japa beads, and I'm like, okay, this works. So those kind of things happen a lot down there. We deal with approximately, we have about 70 beds, so technically we could have 70 people on this community that are from outside community, from the greater community. And they come onto our Hare Krishna farm to get support and find Krishna. And so I really want to see, okay, so the goal, let's move on to, is there a slide that I need to talk about? And I also wanted to say it's really wonderful, all these community service sectors that we have. We have, the women's department mentoring, men's mentoring, health care, aged care, child protection services, youth programs. So this is great. We're doing so great. I really absolutely believe. There's me somewhere in that photo. I really see this New Govardhan as being an exemplary example of what a community, Hare Krishna community is. And I would love to see a little community services, an actual physical, like an office, with a chair, a computer, a desk, and a person on that chair who's a qualified social worker / caseworker who can actually take on, with a pay package because it's a job, who can actually take on this monumental service to humanity, to society, to Krishna consciousness, to Srila Prabhupada, where we can facilitate these people to access Krishna consciousness in a structured, controlled environment where they're getting the support they need because they need support. And, because like that story, Damodara, that you read, that was just epic. That is, that's what Krishna consciousness, it can actually change people's lives because they're coming in contact with Krishna and with Srila Prabhupada in this incredible process that we have that is actually, it is life-changing for all of us. So why not everybody? Why can't we be inclusive and have, integration, participation, and inclusion to the people who are who are more vulnerable than us, than the ones who can get up every day and get through life. And yeah, we have days where we're depressed, where we got anxiety. I had anxiety all morning, so that's also mental health. You know, that kind of classifies as a slight mental illness, OCD, I got that. So, you know, we're all kind of just real people struggling with the same things. Some of us are struggling more, they have more challenges, but I believe we listen, we have empathy, compassion, love, which are the qualities of a Vaishnav that we are trying to be in this life, and we need to look after the vulnerable. And there's so many groups here, and look at us. So mental health department, Kijai, we're getting a mental health department, and we're getting a little office and a chair, a table, and a computer. And I think. Oh, another thing is, I really feel that we need self-care, we need burnout prevention, because when we're working with people all the time, there's that high risk of burnout, because we're giving so much of our energy and our time and our compassion and love, that we also need to create self-care groups, care for each other, and prevent burnout within the community sector. Because I have a dream. I believe that New Govardhan is the perfect place. We're going to have a community services department here, and we're somehow going to find 4 walls, a floor, a desk, a chair, a computer, and a devotee who's going to be qualified to do mental health and support. And I thanked you. I used your story. I did a lot of research. I wanted to really give the point across. I hope I have. I even researched what the color for mental health was, because I thought it was green, but I just double checked to make sure, and it was like, yeah, it's green for wellness and harmony. And I'm like, okay. So I really believe in this project. And Hladini, you're a magician. You're amazing. And Krishnarupa, Ambika. I've got all these mentors here that I look up to, and Sarva, I love you. And Jai Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much. I didn't use all the slides. I got lost.
Thank you so much, Radha. And I haven't told Radha yet, but she and I are writing a book on mental health and Krishna consciousness. Eventually.
Oh, that's our office there.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Okay. All right. So another member of our mental health development team is Yasoda Dulal Prabhu. So Yasoda Dulal joined ISKCON's Brisbane temple in the early 1980s, and he has an earlier professional background in engineering, but some 20 years ago he decided to dedicate more of his time to welfare services within Krishna consciousness and also within the broader community. And so he completed a diploma in community welfare with a special focus on counselling. Now, since then, he has held a government position in mental health. He has worked in aged care, and he has also become a part of what is known as the Men's Shed. Right? That's an organisation that focuses specifically on men's health and well-being. So Yasoda Dulal then became the funder and coordinator of Bay Islands Men's Shed. This is up off the Queensland coast, as well as the manager for Macleay Islands Community Centre. And more recently, yes, he has joined our New Govardhan mental health team. So we would like to welcome to the stage His Grace Yasoda Dulal Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Hladini, for all this very hard work, very, very much needed work. Maybe 40 years overdue, but here we are. And thank you very much for a presentation of Steve Perry. Every single word you have said, that's in my file. And mental health. Going to the supermarket, to the aisles, and go on the health food section, I was thinking there is one aisle which is health food. So what is all of the food about? So we're talking about mental health. Actually, practically, we all have a bit of mental health, but the rest of it is actually mental problems. And we all have it. I'm no exception. And something similar, this mental health profession is sort of just dropped on my lips when I was doing a community welfare work placement, and my mental image about welfare was to help the needy, those who have addictions, drug and alcohol. And we had to all name a particular area we're interested for. So I put my hand up, Mirakai, maybe you know, Gold Coast. I really wanted to go there because that was my mentor. But what happened, actually, that position was already taken, and then could take a placement with the Smith family, and then I all ran out of options. And my dear teacher, Gordon Barnes, came up to me. There is only mental health left for you. Oh my God, I said, I'm crazy myself, I don't want to go there, you know. But he explained that all disorders in our life, whatever it is, depression or stress or misunderstanding of religion or domestic violence, eating disorders, is all under a big umbrella of a mental health. So mental health, think about it as a big umbrella, like this building here. We are all under there, and we have some kind of relationship to that. So within mental health, I mean, there is trauma, there is violence, there is so many different issues, and the very first few days I was really frightened. I said, no, I'm going to associate with some crazies, so I may become crazy also. But actually, I never looked back. It was the most rewarding experience because these people are normal. You see, they're normal. The only thing is they have some kind of issues in their life, whatever it is severe. Whatever is just stress, just like the physical body. So I hardly can stand because I got sciatica. So people would say, oh, what happened? But somebody have a mental illness, it's not written on the forehead. It is, and then when they act not normally, then they said, oh, bloody idiot. So for that reason, this mental health first aid is very, very highly recommended for every single member of the community. So I'm really, really for it because I have conducted it and it's only 8 hours or something. It's really eye-opening and it's helpful. So most of the thing of the mental health, I can only say that I'm really, really supportive, although I live 2 hours away. I'm very interested, and my heart is there to help. I want to be part of the team. That's why I'm here. And mental health is being presented in a very professional way, so I don't have much to say, other than there is many different aspects of mental health. And what is actually touched my life so much about these gender issues, you see. We have in the 1990s, when I was a member of this community, we have started something that's called a men's group. So we had, there is now Prasadam Hall, we came together, we had a nice, open, sort of relationship. We done things together, we went for bushwalking and pizzas and things like that. So that was my first experience of men's because it was a women group also. So it's been recommended that we should do also something. So that developed for me in my life, which became very close to my heart, because this gender discriminations so it is definitely one thing I can say that is also a part of mental illness. 99% of the population has mental illness. It's very hard to say, because as soon as we identify ourselves with a body, it is not true. So mental illness actually means we pretend to be something what we are not. So we are not this body. But again, the next separation is in the bodily concept of life, that I'm a man and you're a woman, I'm white, you are black, I'm Indian, so we have this discrimination ourselves. So when I had also trauma in my life, that is coming out of the Tweed Head's social security, absolute broke, done mistake with my payments and so on. So I was so depressed. And front of the just the doors, there was a caravan painted like a shed, and that was the men's shed. And I thought to myself, and I was already really pissed off, and I said, what kind of people are they? They are men, So immediately it came to me that they are some kind of chauvinist organizations or something, So I thought I'm going to defend women, and I'm going to give them a mouth for being a hot-headed Hungarian. So I go there, and then I said, what is all about? You mentioned you forget the women and things like that. And then within 10 minutes, I was sold. It was so logical, and the philosophy, and they said, they just volunteers, they get together because they want to be giving a sincere help to other men. And by the way, how you going, mate? And I became a member. I've done all the courses, what was required, and started to do counseling within there. So the motto of that men's shed was, and I strictly follow and strictly recommend, especially a community like that. Healthy men, it provides healthy relationship. Healthy relationship gives healthy families. Healthy families gives healthy communities. That's where we are. This is a new Govardhan community. So it starts with the men, I admit. And how technically it works, it comes from the different practice, understanding, and when we have healthy communities, we can have healthy societies. International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So it's not necessary it starts with other than men. So this is my experience, this is my realization. Krishna consciousness needs healthy men, not only physically but mentally also. So within this mental health group, I'm offering my service to develop healthy men, not only mentally but also physically. So that is, also if somebody wants to talk about it privately, men or women, I'm open for questions. Okay? Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Yasoda Dulal Prabhu. And I think I forgot to mention earlier that Yasoda Dulal also serves on our mentorship program here on New Govardhan. Okay, so now we're going to have our last speaker for the mental health group, and then we're going to have a 10-minute intermission. So we're now inviting Dhanvantari Prabhu to come and speak. He has also just joined our group. So Dhanvantari has studied traditional Chinese medicine, homeopathy, naturopathy, and advanced studies in Ayurvedic medicine with world-renowned Ayurvedic practitioners. For the past 20 years, he has specialised in toxicology and has a master's degree in mental health nursing. He has held several positions in New South Wales over the past 8 years and is now developing special nursing programs for mental health. So Dhanvantari Prabhu has treated many ISKCON senior devotees with their various ailments over the past 25 years. He has also been encouraged to complete a PhD looking into the experiences of chanting the Maha Mantra, which he aims to do, and I believe there is actually a devotee in Alachua, Dira Govinda Prabhu. You may know him, Radha. Yeah, he has done a PhD on something similar. And and most recently, yes, Dhanvantari Prabhu, he has joined our New Govardhan mental health development team. So please welcome to the stage Dhanvantari Prabhu.
Thank you everyone for having me here. Serving the devotees is the nectar of devotional service, in my experience. Okay, so I tried to find something that was relevant and easy to present to you today. And that was a study that's what makes people have good relationships and longevity in their life that's meaningful. So that's being socially connected, and that brings around many health benefits. So people live longer, they're happier, and have better experiences in life when they're socially connected, and that's through family, community, spiritually, emotionally, and also physically connected, because all of those things interact together to create a whole. So when people are lonely, they tend to isolate, and as someone was saying before, there were studies when children were denied connection, loving connection, they had very poor outcomes in life. And that tends to go lifelong. And there's a lot of studies that are cutting edge now. It's called methylation of DNA. So your DNA wraps very tightly, and there's lots of different experiences that you can have that are very positive. When your DNA unwinds, you can open up to many experiences in life. When you have trauma in life, your DNA wraps very tightly, which makes you in that fight or flight in life. So that brings a lot of trauma, and people can't express themselves and can't develop full relationships when that happens. So having that social connection is very important. And as you can see, there are also health declines when people don't have those relationships. So there's many other studies. There's another one that I really like that showed when people are well connected, it doesn't matter what disease they get, be it mental, emotional, physical, they do much better when they have relationships. So they don't go up and down with the peaks and troughs. They tend to just go much more smoothly when they're connected. So the same disease, better outcomes, and that goes with most illnesses. So when you know you have support with your mental health, you can tend to relax and let the outcomes occur for you rather than worry, which really exacerbates people's mental health. There was a few points with the other speakers. that I was just thinking of on the fly, and I'll bring up one of them. Stigma is a big part of mental health. So with stigma, that generally comes from fear. So when people are fearful, they'll tend to shut off to other people. So knowledge helps with that. So when you have knowledge of what mental health, and there's so many different ways to interact with people who have different mental health conditions. So when you know what those specific mental health conditions are, you can interact with those people in specific ways. It's very helpful to know how to approach someone, and that's getting into more a professional field, but it is very helpful for someone to go, okay, those people really understand how I work, what works for me, and how to approach me. So those secure attachments, if they're lifelong, people tend to get to the later years of their lives with much more positive outcomes. And yeah, the longest and most happily lived people are people that have, that's a very long study that's been conducted over a long time, are the people with the best social connections. And we are a socially based community, therefore we have a real opportunity to showcase the benefits of Krishna consciousness, and therefore Srila Prabhupada wanted us to have the best of everything, showcase ourselves in the best of everything, and with this philosophy connected with mental health, it really does give us that opportunity. It's a very powerful thing. Okay, so I just wanted to try and cut it to the chase as much as I could. So education is the key. The more knowledge we have, the more choices we have, and we can consciously make them. Rather than trying to revert to a default mode, when we are in a default mode, we just go with what we feel or what we're comfortable with. With knowledge, we can step out of that and make conscious choice. So my idea was, this is a group that obviously can really benefit. Mental health is really prevalent. It's behind childbirth, women under 30, it's the number one admission. So childbirth first, women under 30, second admission to hospital is mental health. It's very prevalent. For men, I think it's sports injuries and that it's second to. So it is becoming very, very prominent in our society. So the idea is devotees have mental health issues just like everybody else. So my idea is we develop culturally sensitive programs that are specific to devotee needs, where mental health is understood within a context of devotional service, and how we approach mental health is different with devotees to how we approach mental health issues with people who are in the general community. So, of course, again, with knowledge, recognise the rising prevalence of mental health. It's an absolute that we need these services within our Vaishnava community, and to develop specifics for our community. When we have that framework, we have a point of reference, we can move forward in a confident way on how to engage with devotees and help them through their mental health issues. And not only just people with mental health issues, people who are also healthy. We always look at illness as something that's need to be fixed, but health really consists from the Ayurvedic model of trying to prevent things. So the same programs that we apply to mental health issues can also apply to people who don't have any issues to enhance their health. So you've got something to fall back on when those times arise, because they will arise for all of us. We've got a framework where we've got knowledge to deal with those situations when they arrive. So the same things, some of the things that I like to work with, that's motivational interviewing. Lecturing doesn't work. When you try and lecture on health issues, you have to listen to people. People know what they have to do. We just need to listen to them and put it in a context and encourage them to do what they already know to do. That's motivational interviewing. That's one point where we could move forward. There's also cognitive behavioural therapy where we put old belief patterns and we exchange them for new belief patterns. That's just in a nutshell. Just trying to think what else. Oh, look, one very simple thing, I like to always give something that's practical rather than just theoretical. Simply going for a walk. Very well proven in mental health. You go for a walk every day, simply, it helps with your mental health. So it's not just focused, complex things that we can do, it's very simple things we can do. My idea is that we develop community programs that are specific to mental health conditions for people and, try and get those roles allocated with people who have knowledge and training. Keep it simple, but specific, because one size doesn't fit all. And dealing with people with mental health, I'll just finish up on one point. It is very normal, and the biggest thing you can do when you deal with people with mental health conditions, including ourselves, is just knowing it's normal. You speak to people in a way that's normal and normalise it for people. They feel at ease, and that's the start point. So we just have to accept where people are at and show them that we accept them, and then we can always move forward from there. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. Just try and keep it simple, and I hope we do get something further going for the new Govardhan community, because as other people have said, I do believe in this community, and it is a great opportunity that we have here to move forward. Thank you, everybody.